Good afternoon. We're just going to wait just a few more minutes. Okay. So we just have just about 4 more minutes to allow everyone to come to the presentation. Okay, about 3 more minutes. Okay, 2 more minutes. Okay, we're going to begin in just 1 more minute. Okay, good afternoon. And I would just like to thank everyone for being here today for our Employer Spotlight event. Today, for our Employer Spotlight, we have the National Institutes of Health. They're going to be joining us today. And today we're going to be talking about federal resume writing. So they're going to teach you how to write your federal resume. This event will be presented by Kevin Blake, he's an HR specialist, and Orly Egert, she's a program analyst. At this time, I'm going to turn this presentation over to Mr. Kevin Blake.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to thank the career staff for inviting us. And I also would like to definitely thank the tech team for making sure that we were all set today. And lastly, but most definitely not lastly, you all as students that's here to get this information that we're definitely wanting to give to you so that you will be able to get some of the great information that's there. The next slide that we have that we're going to follow is the agenda. And what we're going to talk about today is who is the NIH? What can I do at NIH? Because I know a lot of folks have that question thinking that, hey, I'm a scientist or am I not a scientist? Can I get into NIH? So as you can see, we have some scientist positions, which will deal with research and administrative. And we have operational positions that we will talk about. Then we will go into federal resume versus private sector resumes. We will then talk about how do you write a federal resume. At that time, my colleague will go through some of the announcements, and we will do a live portion so that you can see directly through usajobs.gov. And she will also talk to you about how to tailor your resume to fit that particular position. Then we will talk about give you some examples of accounting that will be there in social science and analysts. And those are the jobs that will be on that you will see. So we have some examples so that you can get familiar with USA Jobs and actually how to read the announcements. Then followed by that, we will have some tips for resume writing, and then we will lead with the resources that you will be able to use going forward. So I would be remiss if I did not start our time with you in sharing a little bit more about who the NIH is, some of our big projects currently underway, and the types of jobs available at NIH. The NIH main campus, which is very familiar and similar to your campus, is located here in Bethesda, Maryland. The campus is where we house science research and we treat patients at our clinical centers. As you can see, there's a collage of pictures. The pictures on the top left show Dr. Corbett, which is talking about the COVID research lab to the President Trump while he was visiting the campus at the end of March of this year. And of course, you'll see our director, Dr. Collins and Dr. Fauci. Moving across is a photo of the children, which they're at the Children's Inn at NIH. On the right, you will see the recruiters at the college event last year. And then on the bottom, you'll see just a graphic clinical trial terms. In the middle, you'll see the training that was done for management analysts. And then on the right, the NIH has an actual orchestra, if you didn't know that. So that might be a hidden thing you didn't know. So I would like to share some of the big names and see what is happening here at NIH. So one of the things that you may have not known, less known, is the BRAIN Initiative. It's a multi-year scientific plan involving a large network of collaborators to fully research the brain, better understand cellular and nuclear function, and it was targeting specific human cells. And then you have, again, the biggest one going on right now, which would be the COVID-19 phase trial. That is going on, and of course is near and dear to us to address the vaccine, and we're hoping that that will go through right now. At this point now, the trial is on way and on track to for approximately 13,000 participants. The All of Us research program is the largest clinical trial of its kind with goal to build one of the most diverse health databases in history with over 1 million participants. What can I do at NIH? So again, like we said before, in the scientific research enterprise, the NIH has the science administrative roles where staff utilize their scientific background experiences to better administer research dollars, clinical trial ethics requirements, and policy legislation to ensure safety and inclusivity in research and treatment. The better known scientific roles are direct benchmarks and research physicians and nurses who work together to treat our clinical studies patients and further knowledge of often rare fatal diseases. So as you can see, this is basically broken down where you have the science administrative roles, which will under that will have like the folks who are dealing with the health and scientific policies. You'll have the health scientific and administrators and the bioethics. On the right side, you'll have more of the science and medical roles, which can be even down to your veterinarians, for example. So sometimes folks will be able to go in and out of these roles. So we'll have maybe veterinarians on the right side, and then they may want to go over to a role of a policy or administrator. So you can kind of go in and out, but those are different fields that we have as well. What can I do at NIH? So while it is known that we are the largest biomedical research facility in the world, what many people do not know is that there is a small village of approximately 12,000 people. You hear that correctly, 12,000 that's supporting the scientific enterprise. This slide focuses on a few of these operational jobs, which run the ranges from management analyst to communications related jobs and financial positions. So as you can see on the slide, we have different career fields, which we here call operational careers. So for example, it can be under the business operations. So if you fall under that, that can be administrative officer, program analyst, management analyst, program specialist, etc. Then we have the communication, which could be the health communication specialist, a public affairs or writer editor. And then again, you'll have the finance will be the finance management analyst, auditor, or budget analyst. And under that, we also, which is my role as a human resource specialist. So again, we have multiple jobs that's here that you can also do. We also have the fire, police, and personnel to keep the campus, and we have facility managers positions that's available as well. So at this time, I'm going to pass this over to my colleagues so we can get right into the meats and potatoes of why you came here, which was to discuss resume.
Hi there, everyone. This is Orly Eggert. I am going to share my screen real quick so that you can see what's going on. And if you hear my dogs in the background, I'm very sorry about that. I am working with my husband to make sure that they are going to be as quiet as possible. In the background, you can probably see I live on the farm, and that was the first cutting of our hay earlier on in the spring. Again, I'm going to try to get back to my PowerPoint. There we go. Okay, so a lot of these slides are going to be a little bit content heavy, but we are going to have some questions at the end. So feel free to post a question in the question and answer chat box, and we will get to those questions at the end. So what are federal resumes versus private sector resumes? What's the difference? The private sector resumes, they describe your achievements. They're usually in bulleted form, and it's a concise, a concise one-page resume. And going too fast. So then we have the federal resume, and the federal resume is geared towards the federal side. So then the federal side that describe the experiences and the skills, and they for both paid and unpaid work. The federal resume does not follow the one-page limit. One of the reasons is that when we build the positions, oh, there you go. Sorry, where did I leave off? I was muted for a minute. I did not mean to do that. So the federal resume describes your experiences and skills, both paid and unpaid work, and it does not follow the limit of the one-page limit, because when we build the positions, those experiences have scope and effect. When you have experiences that have been with companies, with volunteer organizations, we like to know what type of position you're in, what type of experience you've had. Were you working at the sort of at the leadership level, or were you working as even when we're talking about polling places right now, were you a volunteer? Were you working with one of the judges? That kind of thing is something that you would want to put on your resume. So the federal resume has the full breadth of experience, the full scope of the experience as well. and it tells your story per the experience. And in the federal, when you're applying to federal positions, your resume is your application. Okay. So where do you begin? Well, you want to read the job announcement. And right now I'm going to show you what the job announcement is, but we're going to review each section. There's an overview, there's location, there's duties, and there's links to this. But I do want to show you in the specific announcements. So when you go to USA Jobs, you're going to look for, and you can do a search. There's searches you can do. Hopefully you've already signed in and you've already developed a resume within the USA Jobs format. And that's just, if somebody has a question about that, that process or that format, we can address that in the question and answer period at the end. So then we have the overview, which is the open and closing dates, the pay scale, the appointment type. And these are all you want to make sure you address all of the, we're not going to go into very much detail about all of the tabs, but there are the duties as well. The requirements. Requirements is very important because it'll show you what you need to have for your basic level of experience. So this one for the clinical informatics specialist, what is required at the 12 level, GS 12 level, and it does have promotion potential. You want to check that out as well, promotion potential to the next level. The position that's required, the specialized experience and the duties. So this one specifically says that designing, conducting tests of software function and performance, directing and implementation of the vendors, major production software components, and leading the first level testing of new vendor features. So you can read the rest, but that is something that at the very minimum, you have to have that to qualify for the position at the GS-12 level. Okay, so each position, each announcement will have this section on how to qualify. So when we get back to positions that are at our lower levels, when we're looking at positions for students, well, let's go back to the PowerPoint now. So we went through the sections. You want to make sure you read the sections, make sure you're applying correctly. You want to analyze, you want to look at your resume again, make sure that you're reaching the education requirements and the experience level. And you want to analyze the questionnaire as well. So in the announcement, there is a link to the questionnaire. You can actually look at it before you apply. You want to know what type of questions they're going to have? Go to that questionnaire link on the announcement. And you want to be honest and not modest. When a specialist is looking at your resume for qualifications, they're not supposed to be reading between the lines. That's why we don't want to stick to one page. We want the full breadth of experience so that we can give you credit for that type of work that you have done, and also volunteer work that you have done. So taking a closer look, for example, taking a closer look. So a lot of the students, they graduate and they want to, they're moving on to maybe a master's. An accountant is a position that they might look at. The education requirement for a GS9 accountant is a completed 4-year bachelor's or higher with 24 credits in accounting, or a combination of experience with at least 4 years of experience in accounting with 24 credits in accounting. Now, you can qualify based on education and experience. So, for example, if you have 4 years of your bachelor's or higher with the 24 credits in accounting plus a level of experience, 1 year of experience obtained in either private or public sector performing the following types of tasks. So, analyzing and interpreting managerial functions related to the control of resources or funds, tracking and controlling organizational funds, researching regulatory material to locate appropriate procedures for financial transactions, or completing standard reconciliations, preparing financial reports and documents. So these are examples of experience that you can add education and experience to qualify for this position. Okay. So, you read the qualifications section very carefully, very important, that you feel that you are confident that you can speak to it, that your resume speaks to it, and so that there's no doubt in somebody when they're reviewing their resume that you have the experience and that you have the knowledge and the skill level to carry out the functions. So we're gonna dive deep into a little bit of what these qualifiers mean, what these experiences mean in a later slide. Again, if you have some specific questions and you want to put that in the question and answer box, we'll address those questions at the end. So for this accountant, let's break down the experience. So what does it mean when we say analyzing and interpreting managerial functions related to the control of resources or funds? That may mean that, when you have worked or you've had experiences with management of the budget, maybe the budget development process, financial reports, when you're completing standard reconciliations, what does that mean? Maybe preparing a balance sheet, a checkbook, a credit card statements. A lot of volunteer organizations, they do need somebody who has that responsibility. And that is something that you want to put on your resume, and you want to have, what kind of balance sheet, what kind of, credit card. Or was it something that you did for the whole organization? Was it part of a project? Was it part of some event that they had to buy some materials for, and then maybe you're the one reconciling those balance sheets? Also, in preparing financial reports and documents, if you're creating and assisting in the creation of an audit, maybe, or a data analysis of financial records. That's also a skill and experience that you want to put down on your resume as part of the breadth and scope of what you do for paid and unpaid work. So paid work example could be, examining and analyzing accounting records, preparing monthly bank and general ledger reconciliations, and interpreting accounting data or reports. Another example is preparing financial statements that include cash flow, balance sheets, and income statements for various entities. Unpaid work examples, and this is where, your extra time comes in, away from school, and being part of student organizations. What if, if you're a treasurer of a student organization, and responsible for monthly financial reports to the local and regional association leaders. That's important work that you want to put that on your resume. You want to, if you're answering to anyone that is, you know, for student organizations, I know that there's a level where you kind of have to provide an audit to somebody, someone in leadership for the school. And that's just one layer on top of you know, the basic organizational structure, but that's something that goes into scope and effectiveness. So you want to put that in there in your resume. You want to record expenses. If you're recording expenses, donations, transactions, and other financial data in a spreadsheet, put that experience down. That's invaluable as far as accountant work. You want to make sure you're you know, that spreadsheet experience is also on there. I'm looking at the clock, making sure that we have some time. We also, non-paid work, you know, if you're preparing an annual financial report for a membership. A lot of volunteer organizations have long, you know, lists of memberships, and just keeping track of those memberships, who's paid, who's unpaid, you know, for events that they're holding, you know, who's paid, unpaid, you know, who's paid up for those events, that kind of thing. Very important work. That's all unpaid experience that is relevant to accountant work. See what else. I want to make sure I'm not missing any questions yet. I don't see any questions yet. Hold on. But I do want to make sure that I'm advertising the questions portion here. Okay. So we did another example for the social science analyst as well. So social science analyst, you know, this is a position where it doesn't necessarily require those accounting skills, but the degree in behavioral or social sciences is very important. So that degree is there, or a combination of education and experience that has provided the knowledge of one or more behavioral or social science and equivalent to a major in a field. So this is, so my mouse keeps rolling. So here we go. So then also what didn't have in the accountant is another C option where you have 4 years of appropriate experience demonstrating that you have an acquired knowledge of one or more behavioral or social science equivalent to a field, to a major field. So it's still, you know, education related, but it's, you know, you have 4 years of experience demonstrating that knowledge. So then if you're adding that with a specific experiences, that would be, you know, in an assistant capacity in implementation of one or more research projects or program evaluations using social science methods, surveys, interviews, focus groups, secondary data analysis. So some of these could be projects that are happening at school. It could be part of your curriculum that you are a part of, you know, implementing these projects. So you might apply quantitative and qualitative analysis skills to analyze these issues and data, identifying problems and formulating data-driven solutions. Organize, another experience point, organize and prepare quantitative and qualitative data sets for descriptive and inferential statistical analysis. That's another side of, you know, social science. That's an up and coming piece of what we do at NIH. What do those data sets mean? Identify and gather scientific literature, policy analyses, and documents to inform current directions is something that we do right now, even with COVID, is that we're providing literature for the public. Very important work. Assistance in the production of data reports, visualizations, briefings, or other documents, even creating PowerPoint, just like this, what we're doing today. That's important work when you're doing social science analysis. And then there's a qualifier here, or a completed master's, a graduate degree, 2 full years of progressively higher. So this would be the plus. So you would have 4 years of appropriate experience plus maybe you have your master's, and that would qualify you. And that would qualify you for the GS9 level. So I apologize, my mouse is rolling. So I'm just going to be using these forward buttons. So the social science analyst, the breakdown of that experience, I kind of went over a little bit in the discussion about what it could mean. But you can have a skill and experience. You can have a paid work example, like conducting initial assessments, as a member of a research team. You can draft member surveys, translating the data. Like I said, very important work. That's something that we're doing right now with COVID. And if you represent the Department of Human Services or leadership in whatever capacity you're in, if you're representing your organization in meetings, discussions, briefings, and key management and supervisory personnel concerning the agency's best practices, that's all higher level work. That's what we need at the from having a bachelor's degree versus having like a master's degree type level work. So I hope that is, and we can explain a little bit more in detail if somebody has a specific question. So what are your basic resume writing tips? You want to demonstrate the increased level of responsibility if possible. Remember when I was talking about the scope of the type of work that you're doing. You want to include data. You want to include percentages and years of experience. You want to highlight the impact. So when you do bullet points for private sector, most of the time it is a highlight and it does have impact, but sometimes it doesn't give the breadth of experience. So you want to think out a little bit outside of the box, outside of the bullet, when you're writing your federal resume. So you want to include the social media experience and expertise. You want to include the platforms you're familiar with, Microsoft, and PC and Mac, computer platforms. You want to include your volunteer and service activities. Like I said, you have student organizations, you have religious organizations that you can be part of, that you want to be, if you've held leadership roles, you want to include that in your resume. You want any type of training, Six Sigma, MS Project Manager, coding training, any of that, you want to put that in your resume. And when you look at the USA Jobs resume format, it'll have an area for you to add your training and other information. Workplace committees, if you have leadership roles, or if you had a role and your committee has an impact on your organization, you also want to put that in your resume. Again, we can't stress this enough. You want to be honest, not modest. We want to be able to relate your experiences to the position. You want to make sure that the resume reflects your true experience. And we have a third party review, have a third party review for understanding. So have somebody in your family, another coworker, or another, a student. If you're still in, obviously guys are still in school, but maybe a professor, you want to run it by your professor, your resume, for making sure that it makes sense to them. If it makes sense to them, it'll most likely make sense to the person reading your resume for your qualifications. Here we have a list of resources. This PowerPoint and this video of this presentation will be available to you. So these resources are going to be available to you as well. You want to go through the NIH Jobs website. There's a pathways, also very important. I started out as a student appointee, and that's where the pathways authority comes in, where you can come in, you can be an intern, and you get trained to do the jobs that you want to be, you want to grow into. So I'm very proud of that. And it's, like I said, I started out as a student, and now I've been in the government for 20 years. So I'm very proud of that. And I've run the gamut of human resources functions. So I want to make sure that is something that you look into, the pathways hiring authority. So also we have the Office of Intramural Training and Education website. So that's part of the training part. Then USA Jobs Resource Center. Working in government. How you want to know a little bit about the position you're wanting to come into, but also you want to learn what federal work means. What does that mean? So then the Federal Resume Tips is also part of that, the NIHjobs.gov website for federal resumes. And of course, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, and we're on Twitter. So you can find us. So I think I'm gonna hand it over to Kevin. I'm gonna move the slide over, but if Kevin wants to take over and have a little more, make sure that I've covered everything, and then we'll have a closeout. So make sure you have some questions. If you have questions, please make sure you put that in the question and answer section. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. I guess at this time, can someone from the Career Center, Ms. Adams or Ms. Pricey, if there are any questions that the students put in the chat box for us?
Oh, sure. So we do have a question, and your first question is there a link or website that you know of where we can pull federal descriptions of job experiences?
I'm not sure who's, okay. Yes, so right there we have the resources. So those are great resources right there for you to actually pull into. And just like Orly went through those jobs, you can actually see in there where some of the descriptions are there when it comes to what job experience you would need. And again, within that, it also tells you some of the experiences that you would need for that level or even for the lower level when you come to it. Another good rule of thumb is that you can also look at other jobs, that could be Amazon or Google, and just kind of see what they have that will also help you with your resume. One of the things that you can look at as well when you're applying for the job, especially if you go on NIH.gov or you go on USA Jobs, what you can do is there's a link in there that will tell you, or you can pull up some of the questionnaire. So to say assessment questionnaire, you can actually click onto that and it'll have the questions before so that you'll know exactly what that job is looking for. So that's when Orly was kind of talking about catering your resume to the job, that's one of the quick ways and easiest way to do that is to look at that and make sure that that particular questionnaire, you have addressed that within. Because what we find is that some folks, they will wind up underselling themselves and undervaluing themselves because they don't realize, like, they take kind of for granted, like, okay, this is an applied duty for this job, but you need to let the employer know what that is. And also, if you look at the assessment questions, it will range anything from, that you don't have any experience to where you have experience, but it's under supervision, and then what you may be considered as an expert. So with that being said, you also, the questions above that, and you have to self evaluate yourself. Then you look at that and you'll say, okay, well, you know what? I am an expert on that. However, did you put that in your resume to show that that you're an expert in that field? And again, when Orly was talking about, percentages and stuff like that, those are things that you want to highlight, because you have to realize that some jobs we may have on the scientific side, we maybe only 50 resumes because it's a veterinarian, but then we may have where we go into student trainees under, since you already have it up there, the resources, which is the pathways, which deals with a lot of interns. You can have almost, 800, 600 to 1,000 people almost that's trying to apply. You have to sell yourself. And again, don't sell yourself short. We're not telling you to lie. We just want to make sure that you're pulling everything into that resume to highlight yourself and the things that you have done, especially when it comes to some of the jobs that you may have done as an intern somewhere else, in your sorority, in your church. All those things are experience that will help you out along the way.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And we have another question. What is meant by positive education requirements in a job announcement for a resume?
Okay, Orly, I think that's on your slide. Can you back it up to that part so you can kind of talk to them about that?
So when you're talking about, so there's the two examples. Positive education requirement for an accountant, you must have 24 credits of accounting. So you don't even have to have a bachelor's degree in accounting, but maybe, for example, it's another field, but that 24 credits in accounting, we're talking about macroeconomics, accounting, statistics, that kind of stuff. It's all going to be part of that positive education requirement. Therefore, that will be something that will be required. We will require a transcript to verify. So those 24 credits, that is your positive education requirement for this position, for a GS9 position.
And to further with that one, I have seen where this came into play, just so you can kind of get the gist of it, that we had someone that had a bachelor's degree in organizational leadership, and they wanted to apply for an accounting position. So it was just a good thing that we had the transcripts and we accounted that they had beginners accounting, intermediate accounting. So it added up to the 24 credit hours. And then what wound up happening is that they were working actually at a church in the accounting office, helping out with the church. So that's where that experience plus the education came into play.
Thank you for that, Kevin and Orly. We have another question. How important are references?
Well, the references are definitely important because that's definitely a thing of what the manager is. Me as an HR specialist, I will not actually call your references, but that's on the manager, the selecting official, and the panel on how deep they want to go into checking all your references. I will say here, they usually will call your references. So that's another reason why folks we always tell them, do not over embellish your resume, because that manager will call and say, hey, well, they've been doing this accounting, and I'll go back with, they say they're working at your church, and then come to find out the only thing you were doing was passing the tithe offering plate. So, you don't have that experience as an accountant, so So you definitely want to do that. You do not want to, I'm just going to add on to it, is to cut and paste things that's in the application or in the job announcement to say directly that this is what you were doing. You definitely want to change it to, really reflect what you were doing in there. But yes, the references are very important.
Okay, thank you. We have another question. What does GS mean in a position title?
So, Kevin, you can address this, but the GS, it's a scale. It's the scale is called general schedule, and that is how the salaries are organized with federal government. Now you will see, a lot of organizations, a lot of departments have pay band, what they call pay band scales. So they will have a different, instead of GS, it'll be IB, or it'll be a different set of. But when you see a GS9, that's a pace. That's the level of the pay scale.
Okay, thank you, Orly. And we have another question. The question is, on a federal resume, should I write in paragraphs or use bulleted statements?
For that, to me, is really based on how much experience you have in there, because some folks like to go in between. I would tell you to try to at least keep it formatted to one or the other. Some folks will do bullets on this particular job, and then they'll go into paragraph form. You won't be able to go in paragraph form if you really don't have a lot of experience. So maybe the bullet will help you out more so. So it just really kind of comes down on preferences. I know bullets are more for the one pagers. For us, it's preferred that you try to get more of the paragraph only, and that's just my personal opinion, only because a lot of times you will write more about what you have done versus just a highlight of it. So it kind of helps you out.
Yes, absolutely, I agree. And even even if you want to try to organize it in bullet form, you want to have the full breadth of experience in that bullet.
Well, thank you for that. And so our next question is, it takes long to receive a response back when applying. How long should it take to receive a response back when applying for a federal position?
With that, what happens is for the most part, is generated through the computer. So after you apply, you should receive something saying thank you for applying. Normally, I know with our agency, and again, different agencies do different things. For us, it's 16 days that we have to generate an application list and reference list to move over to the managers. So what will happen at that point is when that 16 days is up or sooner, we will close that particular portion of it out so that it will generate a computer email to let you know that you have been referred to the manager or you have not been referred to the manager. And within that, it will tell you why you were not referred over to the manager. Now, the long wait becomes is how long what we call the referral list lasts. The life of it is what I'll call it. So nowadays it's like 8 months. So from that point, you won't receive anything from HR until the whole thing is closed out 8 months later. And that is what we call a disposition letter to let you know that, someone else has gotten the job or the job has been closed or something of that nature will happen. Other than that, in between time, that will be a thing of jobs are being interviewed for. We also have a thing that we have called shared referral list, which means is that if Orly was hiring one person and she filled hers, but then Ms. Adams or Ms. Price or whoever decides now that, hey, we have this same similar position come out, you can use that same referral list. So that's why it takes a long time before it's to close out. So that's why you want to really do your best on your resume, because it may have on the announcement only one job, but in essence, the life of that particular certification is 8 months, which means it could have 10 more positions that come open. So you want to be able to, go across the board and basically sell yourself because one person may be looking for someone that's more HR savvy, someone that's more IT savvy, and someone that's more of a leadership savvy. So if you have those things in that resume, the next manager that looks at that list and look at your resume will pick you up. And then one last thing, I know we talked about references. Please make sure that when you're using your references, don't, I say a lot of folks will use their friends, even the coworkers are okay, but you want to try to use for sure your managers, former supervisors, because that's what managers would want to talk to, not your family, friends, and someone that's just going to vouch for you. They want to know, and talk to some managers that can talk and have some kind of breadth of how you are as a professional.
Okay, thank you. And I have another question. What does it mean when the vacancy announcement says who may apply section says all sources, status applicants, and or reinstatement eligibles?
I can assist with that. If I can go into the announcement that I had up, hopefully it'll come up. Okay. So when you see this position, these are basically hiring authorities. Okay. The federal government has different hiring authorities to bring people in. I talked a little bit about pathways, which is the intern. It's kind of like the intern portal. Okay. This is one of the hiring authorities that we can bring in students. But if an announcement is open to the public, that means that, what does that mean? That means that, the persons that are eligible have, in this particular case, they have to be U.S. citizens. Sometimes non-U.S. citizens are eligible too, but they're going to be, and just like these links will provide more information about that. So, so you have different hiring paths. That's what that means when you're applying, when you're looking for, when you're doing searches. I'm going to move away from the position now, but when you're looking at the hiring paths, these are the hiring authorities that the federal government uses to bring people in. Okay, so you'll have people that have never had federal service, okay, and they want to come into federal service, and that's open to the public. That means also veterans can apply, and veterans also have veterans preference as well. So they can apply to open public. Those federal employees that have had competitive service or positions that are accepted service. A lot of, for example, FBI positions, a lot of them are accepted service. And it's basically you're at the will and mercy of the director. And some positions will be only internal to agencies. So this hiring path, when it's lit up for positions and stuff, things like that, if you open to public, well, this is a very large pool of vacancy announcements, but that's the only filter that I have right now, open to the public. So if I put in something for the Rockville area, then it'll diminish to still 1,103 jobs. So you want to look at this, and you want to look at those filters. Hopefully one of those filters will be NIH. So if you're looking for NIH positions, you want to go to the where am I here? The agency. So NIH is under the Department of Health and Human Services. So I know this is a federal resume writing format, but this is really important for people when they're doing searches to make sure they're looking at positions that are going to be something that they can apply to. So just like this nurse position, this is open to the public. This is a GS-12 position. And like I said, sometimes they have little videos, which is great. That helps put position into perspective. Somebody asked about the duties and responsibilities of the positions. It's very clear in the responsibilities what this person will be doing. So a lot of it will be coming right directly from the position description. Again, we have the requirements and the conditions of employment, the qualifications that are needed, education requirement. This will also have a positive education requirement. So I think we're running out of time, but it's just kind of important to look at all of the details in the announcement.
Thank you. And we're just going to take one last question because we're heading to the end of time. So our last question will be, should I change my resume for every job I apply to?
Well, to me, I know a lot of people do that. So it's really kind of preference to you. I know when I was looking for federal job, because I'm retired military, and everyone always told me, hey, have about 10 different ones. That's really kind of up to you on that. To me, what I did was I looked at it as doing a resume becomes a full-time job with keeping it updated, making sure that as you see different languages and different announcements, that you will update it. For me, it became a thing of I was able to get one resume. I started off with 4 until I got that one that covered everything. So therefore, there was no question, did I not have what they need into that? And that's when you have to really kind of look at what type of jobs are you actually looking for. So it won't be a thing of maybe you're looking for accounting today and then now you want to be a scientist tomorrow kind of thing. You may still be in that same field, so it may cover all of those. But so I won't tell you no to have multiple resumes, especially until you get it down to where you can feel comfortable with that. And again, look at those assessments and see if those assessment questions are answered in that resume, because even if it's an HR position, one HR position may do a different thing than another HR position. So therefore, I won't say every HR, if you have an HR resume, that resume will go for that next HR position, i.e. I'm HR staffing and recruitment. The next one will be HR employee relations. That might be the parenthetical, the specialized point in that. So you still want to look at that assessment and see what they're requiring, and you may have to make that adjustment.
Okay. Well, thank you. So it doesn't look like we have any more questions coming in. So at this time, I just want to thank National Institutes of Health for spotlighting our event today. And I just want to thank you all for just joining us. And I hope you all learned something today about writing your federal resume. So at this time, we're going to close out the event and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck, students.
Bye.
Bye.